Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, good morning. Buenos días. Konnichiwa. Jai Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Shodanandana, Jaya Amraja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Yasodeva Jaya Kunja Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Shri Shri Radha Damodara Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihadrakacharya Saraswati Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihadrakacharya Saraswati Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Krishna Prasthana Guru Srimati Bhagavatam Swami Prabhupada Hare Krishna. We're going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 27, text number 10. Let me just get my screen set up here. There we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Teshu tarikta hareshu grihakoshanu jivishu nirudhena mamatvena vishayeshvan vabhadyata. Teshu tarikta hareshu grihakoshanu jivishu nirudhena mamatvena vishayeshvan vabhadyata. Teshu tarikta hareshu grihakoshanu jivishu nirudhena mamatvena vishayeshan vabhadyata. Word for word translation here. Teshu, to them. Tat riktahareshu, the plunderers of his money. Griha, home. Kosha, treasury. Anujivishu, to the followers. Nirudhena, deep-rooted. Mamatvena, by attachment. This is an important word for us. Mamatvena. Hare Krishna. Vishayeshu, to sense objects. Anvabhadyata, became bound. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada Ki Jai. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Paranjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Paranjana's attachment for these things was very deep-rooted. Purport. In this verse, the word rikta hareshu, meaning plunderers of wealth, is very significant. One's sons, grandsons, and other descendants are ultimately plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. There are many celebrated businessmen and industrialists who produce great wealth and are highly praised by the public. But all their money is ultimately plundered by their sons and grandsons. In India, we have actually seen one industrialist who, like King Paranjana, was very much sexually inclined and had a half-dozen wives. Each of these wives had a separate establishment that necessitated the expenditure of several thousands of rupees. When I was engaged in talking with him, I saw that he was very busy trying to secure money so that all his sons and daughters would get at least 500,000 rupees each. Thus, such industrialists, businessmen, or karmis are called mudhas in the Shastras. They work very hard, accumulate money, and are satisfied to see that this money is plundered by their sons and grandsons. Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner. You should hear that again, huh? Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the real proprietor of all wealth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the actual enjoyer. So-called earners of money are those who simply know tricks by which they can take away God's money under the guise of business and industry. After accumulating this money, they enjoy seeing it plundered by their sons and grandsons. This is the materialistic way of life. In materialistic life, one is encaged within the body and deluded by false egoism. Thus, one thinks, I am this body, I'm a human being, I'm an American, I am an Indian. This bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus, it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from his entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 13 to 15, in this way. Idam madhya maya labdham ivam prapse manoratham idam asti idam api me bhavishyati punardhanam asau maya hatha shatrur anishe chaparannapi ishvaroham maham bhogi siroham balavan sukhi adyo bijanavan asmi konyosti sadrisho maya yakshe dasyami modishya ityagyana vimohita. This is the translation of these verses. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. In this way, people engage in various laborious activities, and their attachment for body, home, family, nation, and community becomes more and more deep-rooted. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakabatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Let's just take one moment to offer our most respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of His Divine Grace. Our Param Guru, Srila Prabhupada, compassionately is directing us away from the norm in this world in Kali Yuga. The trend is towards selfishness. The trend is towards the disintegration of social cohesion, the disintegration of spiritual connection. That's the norm in the material world. It's a powerful energy. It's active. The mode of ignorance in particular, as we heard at the end of these Bhagavad Gita verses, iti agyana vimohita. The mode of ignorance is an active dynamic force, and it's acting upon us. It's trying to get into your life, into your head, and into your heart right now. It is not idle, like the person in the mode of ignorance. It's an active force, and the trend is towards destruction, disintegration, dissatisfaction, and dissolution. As Krishna says to Arjuna, evam parampara praptam imam rajosho vidu sakala neha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. By the influence of time, sakala. Yoga nashta parantapa. Even the culture of yoga is nashta. It's gradually destroyed. It's chipped away. It takes a lot of energy to resist that. And so when Prabhupada writes these purports, it seems like intense condemnation of everything material. And it is. But we need that. Prabhupada's put in the energy so that we can fight against the energy of destruction and ignorance. He's put in the energy for us. All we have to do is hear regularly. Because there's definitely a trend in material nature. And we see it increasing all the time. It seems like, especially the last few years, we all recognize that that trend is increasing even more. Come out here and talk to some people about their prospects for the future, especially these young people. Ask them about what they have to look forward to in this world, and you'll hear some pretty bleak answers. That is pretty obvious that the trend towards destruction has increased in pace over the last few years. It takes a lot of energy to resist that. We are very fortunate that our spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, has put in the energy for us. He's already done the legwork in resisting the terrible force of Kali Yuga. He's already put in the legwork. He's already done the heavy lifting by contemplating the Shastra, analyzing these verses, and giving us powerful purports so that we can hear them and imbibe its meaning. So let us express some gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for not only delivering the highest nectar, the loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna, in the form of Krishna book, 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. We're delivering the nectar of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is full of ecstatic bliss. But he's also insulated us from the corrosive quality of Kali Yuga. And if we want that insulation, we want that immunization, we have to hear these purports and take them very seriously. I'm going to talk about the purport in a minute, but first I just have to glorify Srila Prabhupada. His purports are very powerful, and we might take for granted because, we've been reading Prabhupada's books for a long time. Most of us who are here have been reading Prabhupada's books for some time. We might take for granted how this is just common sense for us now because we've heard Srila Prabhupada so many times. For a lot of people, this is not so common sense. For a lot of people, even just basic things about understanding who I am, what I'm meant to be doing, what is good and what is bad in this world is very confusing. For a lot of people, that is very confusing. And they can hardly take one step without being overwhelmed with doubt and insecurity about what they're doing and why. For a lot of us, for most of us, a huge part of the mystery of life has already been resolved by the simple, straightforward purports of His divine grace. For many people, they are tormented, really tormented by doubt about their purpose, about their direction. And I'm sorry to be repeating myself. Those of you who tune in to when I'm giving Bhagavatam class, I'm sorry if you're tired of it, but I got to say it again. I talk to these people every day. I try to make a habit, especially a lot of students are out of town right now. A lot of the persons who are regulars at our center, I call them regularly, talk to them as much as I can to keep some connection. You just like the way that people are tormented by doubt and insecurity about their purpose, about their direction. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Young people who should be full of
enthusiasm about their potential are just so tormented by doubt and insecurity. They're just like, even these things that we take for granted is just so basic. You're not the body. Life's not all about accumulating wealth. Don't be so selfish. The stuff which Prabhupada has just drilled into us, we might take for granted because for others, simple things are just a mystery to them. And I'm not saying this by way of insult, trying to feel better than all the karmis and the ignorant fools. I'm not trying to like elevate myself or us in any way. I'm just really trying to remind everyone that we've got it good because of Srila Prabhupada's purports. For other people, even just basic things, even just simple things are such a torment because they're directionless, purposeless, full of doubt. So, glory to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who did the legwork, who did the heavy lifting, and as that way insulated us from the corrosive effect of Kali Yuga and the mode of ignorance. So we should take these purports very seriously. We should see them as a gift. It's really a great gift. Even though their content is critical, and even though Prabhupada might be referring to some of us, he's hitting the mark for some of us in our lives, still it is a great value that Prabhupada would take the time and the effort to immunize us from the effects of Kali Yuga and the modes of ignorance. It's wonderful, it's really amazing. So now let's actually go into the purport, having said something in glorification of Srila Prabhupada. So here, obviously, the problem is that a person works very hard to make money. And yes, it's a lot of hard work. It seems to be getting harder. I don't know. I've only been in this body for about half my lifetime, but it does seem like it's getting harder. And that wealth belongs to Krishna. Bhaktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram Suridam sarvabhutanam. Krishna is the best friend. He's the best friend because not only is he given the wealth, he's given the opportunity to do some service, to do some karma according to our nature. He's provided the whole material world so that we can work in some way, produce some results, which actually is for our benefit, certainly better than just being idle, being ignorant. And so if we understand this, then we'll actually have peace, right? Suridam sarvabhutanam gyattvamam shantim richati. It's actually the real peace doesn't come from finally getting enough wealth, finally getting enough money, because there's never enough. I say this addressing those, I think there's a few in the audience today who are working, and some are just talking about getting into the work world. So one lesson I've learned already, even in my young age, is that there's never enough. You get so much, and then you still feel like, well, if I just had a little more, then I could, finally, everything would be great. And there's never enough. There's never peace from the accumulation of property and wealth. There's never any peace. But that's the illusion of material existence. We think I'll have my peace, my PEACE, when I get my peace, my PIECE. As soon as I get my piece of the pie, when I get my piece of this world, then I'll have my peace, PEACE, my peace of mind. But no, you get your peace and you think, well, if I just had a slightly bigger piece, if I just had a little bit more, then I'll be done, Krishna. We're like addicts. Just like one more hit, then I'll be done. But the real peace comes from recognizing Bhaktaram yagyatapasam, who's actually meant to enjoy all this hard work. It's not really the work that's miserable. And this is a very interesting thing. A lot of social scientists are talking about, there's this whole like labor revolution going on. I don't know if you call it a revolution, but certainly there's been a change in the way of thinking, especially post-pandemic, when the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poor, and it seems like everybody's getting squeezed. And so there's a bit of a labor shift going on. Some of you probably heard in the news, a lot of unionization going on, which is probably a good thing. I don't want to get into too much of the politics, but what some social scientists have pointed out, that a lot of the issue with people and their work is not just the pay. I mean, yeah, there's always pay. People want more money, need more money, but also the feeling that people have jobs and it's just not really purposeful. It's not really meaningful. Perhaps some years ago, maybe decades ago, people took on an occupation, took on a career, and they felt a sense of purpose. Like I'm this company that I'm working for, we're doing something good, Perhaps people in the early days of American history felt like, if I'm working on the railroad, it's like we're doing something good, we're connecting the nation, we're building the economy. People took up a particular industry and they felt like they're providing some service to the world is really beneficial. What social scientists are discovering now in their research is that feeling is less and less now. It's less common for people who work a job to feel like I'm doing something good. Nowadays, people feel like I'm only increasing the bottom line of some company and fattening the pockets of the C-suite, the executives of some corporation. My company is owned by some other company that's owned by some other company that's owned by, Warren Buffett or whatever. And there's less of a feeling like what I'm doing is actually benefiting the world. And that's a lot of the reason why there's a lot of unrest. And even if we were to go back to the good old days of, where perhaps work was a bit more directly beneficial to the world and not just, paying for somebody's trip to the moon, still, our full satisfaction will come from seeing that work as being for the benefit of Krishna. So it's interesting what social scientists are pointing out now about work is really substantiating the statement of Krishna at the end of Bhagavad Gita, that if you want peace, bhoktaram yagya tapasam, you have to see that the enjoyer of this hard work is actually me, Krishna. That's where you finally get your peace and satisfaction. You need to have that purpose. It's for your benefit. It's for our benefit, Krishna is saying. It's for our benefit to have that sense of purpose, that my work is meant to please Krishna. Because Krishna, it's not like Krishna's lacking, But yagyartat karmanonyatra lokayam karma bandhana. If we do not see our yagya, if we do not see our effort, our work as beneficial to Krishna, as an offering to Krishna, then we become bound and we cannot have peace. So there is a revolution going on. It's a good time to remind people that if you want to have a sense of purpose, if you want to feel peace and satisfaction with your work, with your labor, with whatever little money you might get from it, it must be connected to Krishna. And it's amazing how many people want to do that, and they feel that when they're convinced by a devotee. And then we are protected from this misery of just accumulation. You accumulate as much as you can, pile it all up, you store it somewhere, and then you just wait for your family members to fight over it. Oh my God, it's pretty gross. And it's just so common, actually. Prabhupada's giving a personal example of a businessman that he spoke with who had 6 wives. It's got to be a lot of kids. He's trying to provide something for all of them. We all remember the graphic description in 12th canto Bhagavatam about how, is it 12th canto? About how even before a man is dead, family members are fighting over the money. I want to get this, I'm going to get that. I've seen my father and his siblings, and how, when their parents passed, when my grandparents passed away, and how, they have to have these conflicts over who gets what. Even if you don't have that nasty mentality, like I'm going to fight for more, just somehow these situations just bring out the worst in people, and all sorts of petty conflict arises. So what Prabhupada's implying here is you don't have to keep it all in the family. We should give to Krishna what belongs to Krishna. What does he say here? Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner. We should give the wealth to its actual owner. Obviously, there's a responsibility to take care of the family. Srila Rupa Goswami set the standard. 1/4. How much did he? And I can't even remember. Was it 50% gave to his family? No, 1/4 he left for his family. 1/4 for emergency, 50% given to Krishna. I mean, that's a pretty good standard. It's a pretty high standard. I've heard it said by my spiritual master, for what it's worth, to everyone here, that most of us can't afford to give 50% of all of our accumulated wealth. We can hardly make it with 100% of our money. But time is money. We should be able to give more time to compensate for what we cannot give with in actual dollars. That's really important. Yes, we hear some confirmation, 50% for Krishna, 25% for family, 25% for emergency. That's a great ideal. I can't imagine. I mean, I couldn't afford to give 50%, even if I just downgraded practically everything in my life. But as my spiritual master said, time is money. We should give a lot more time to compensate for not being able to give 50% of our money, because that's almost impossible these days. Be almost impossible. Although we should think that at the end of life, 50% or more should be given to Krishna, especially at the end of life. Then it's more affordable because life's almost over. So Prabhupada's making some pretty clear statements here about, asset management, wealth management. Nowadays, you can hire wealth managers if you got it. But Prabhupada's making some simple wealth management plans for all of us. Give to Krishna what is Krishna's, right? The old saying in Rome was, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. We must give to Krishna what is Krishna's. And ideally, give everything to Krishna. Of course, there's a relevant time for that. Closer to the end of life, the sannyas period is meant for giving everything to Krishna. The vanaprastha period is meant for withdrawing from the accumulation of wealth when the children are taken care of. The grihastha period is meant for the accumulation, for the building, and for setting the kids up. But coming to the end of life, of course, give to Krishna what is Krishna's. But he doesn't just want our wealth. He wants our heart. He wants our mind. He wants our words. He wants our body. He wants everything. Give it all. Give all to love. Obey thy heart. Anyway, some very practical financial advice from Srila Prabhupada. There's actually a whole lot of finance advice from Prabhupada. We don't really think of Bhagavatam as like textbook for finance management. There's quite a lot. Someone should go through all of it and accumulate, all of the poignant advice about financial management. It's actually really useful. It's not extreme. It's actually very useful. Narada Muni's advice to the Prachetas, which came earlier, we've already read that in our Bhagavatam classes, is very practical financial advice. How much money do you need? He gives very practical advice to the Prachetas when it comes to how much money do you need. And he gave a really simple perspective. You just focus on devotional service. That's how you know how much you need. That becomes like the thermometer, the metric that measures you too hot, too cold, too much or too little. If you just focus on devotional service, because if you have too much money and you're bewildered and overwhelmed by managing it all, and you can't focus on devotional service, then that's the indication. I have too much. I can't focus on devotional service. And if you have too little, and you're just struggling day by day, just like, where's the next one going to come from? I got to meet this. I got to pay this bill. I got this little thing. And you can't focus on devotional service. That means you have too little. So how do we know how much we need? The sweet spot is when you can focus fully on devotional service. I mean, how practical is that advice? So practical. There's a lot of great financial advice in Bhagavatam. we should someone should accumulate it and just make a little handbook. Money management from the sadhus. Right, so that's the verse and purport, the ongoing saga of Puranjana. It's all kind of downhill for him from here. You know, he fell into the trap, the old honeypot. We got too attached to sex, and at least he came from a culture where, you know, you pay the price to enjoy that activity. Nowadays, people try to enjoy the activity without paying the price, and they suffer in other ways. It's a lot more miserable, actually. It becomes generations of misery. So let us be smart like Puranjana, and at least as smart as Puranjana, and pay the price for our desire for sexual activity, and not be like cats and dogs who just do it and then kind of like run away from the scene, because that causes such deeply rooted issues. Even Arjuna, you know, thousands of years ago was talking about it, this Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara means unwanted, bewildered populations. People just have no idea who they are and what they're doing because their parents aren't responsible enough to give them even an inkling of understanding. Parents don't care. The parents are trying to get out of that. So Puranjana, he's paying the cost to enjoy in that way. We should learn from this lesson. All right, I'd like to finish on the verse and purport there and ask if there's any questions or comments on that, because I'd like to say a little something about the Chiddadahi Utsava, which is celebrated today, the anniversary of that wonderful festival of Lord Nityananda and Raghunath Das. But just before we go to that, are there any comments or thoughts about this verse and purport? Any questions or retorts, challenges? You're allowed to disagree with me because I am no one's guru. No?
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question, Prabhu?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Sarvatma Prabhu. So nice to hear your voice.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'm just curious of, you said that the young people are so despondent and bewildered, confused to an extreme, and I'm curious about the advice that you give.
The advice that I give them, I advise them to chant Hare Krishna. I advise them to reevaluate their expectations, because that's the advice my spiritual master gave me as well. He said this, and I said, does that mean lower your expectation? And he said, no, have more realistic expectation, which of course for most of us means to lower it. So I advise them to reevaluate their expectations of this world, and instead expect their satisfaction from connection with Krishna. And for the most part, of course, people do that. That's why they keep coming to our center and still have a relationship. We're always doing kirtan together. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's just the state of the world, if it's the state of our community, or it's the state of my attempt to connect with people, but not many people are ready to just abandon the need for, you know, some sort of career, some sort of income. A lot of people, a lot of young people, these students especially, are still very much controlled by their parents. They really don't have a lot of choice. For most of them, they have absolutely no choice because they're financially dependent. That's kind of the recurring theme that I hear from students, even though they're like 21, 22, 23 years old. They still, because they have absolutely no income, and whatever little money they might make with some part-time job is just hardly enough to even like feed themselves. Certainly not enough to have their own, you know, their own space, their own home, rental property, or whatever. It's certainly not enough for that. So because they're so financially dependent on their parents, a lot of them don't even have freedom to make any sort of choices for themselves. And their parents just dictate everything to them, you know, even in their young 20s. The parents tell them, now you do this, now you have to go do that. Now you're going to do this, you're going to apply for this job, you're going to go to this place. You know, I talk to a lot of students, they hear, and then when they graduate, they leave, and their parents just tell them exactly what they're going to do. Now you go here, you must apply for this job and that job. You must go and live with this person. You get this much budget. They have so little freedom. And obviously this weighs down on a young person who at this point in life, they should be, maximizing their capability. So what is the advice that I give them? Obviously to connect with Krishna, that they will find their satisfaction, their contentment in that way. And they have to have more realistic expectations about this world. The problem with young people nowadays is that the world that's presented to them, through mass media, is one of absolute freedom and individual expression and just get it all and just be a superstar and be amazing. But the world they actually live in is that they have so little opportunity. They have so little opportunity to do anything that they want. They must do what is expected of them by whoever is paying, which is in almost all cases is their parents. So, there's this dichotomy going on, and it really tortures them a lot. Fortunately, some are smart enough to take up Krishna consciousness and to get serious. Although a huge part of our regular group has just graduated, and have gone on to connect with other communities in the places where they had to go back to. In Minnesota, believe it or not, there's some devotees there in Minnesota. So one girl, Sydney, is going to the regular programs there. Of course, you all know Abdullah. He's connecting with the devotees in Cleveland, in Ohio. Somehow he's got this magical charisma. He found devotees all over the place. And Justin just he's going to the temple, ISKCON temple in New Jersey today. So yeah, they're connecting, they're doing what they can, but of course they're all just under the whip. They're under the whip from their parents. Where's your job? Where's your career? You got to do better. You got to get more. Just all the time, this pressure nonstop. It's harsh. It's really harsh. It's not like the parents are wrong, because, it's getting harder and harder to make enough money to survive. So it's not like the parents are wrong, but these young people are just under so much pressure. It's ridiculous, and because the amount that their parents pay to put them in university is also just incredible prices. So, let's have some pity for these poor students. So an answer is, I just try to help them to have a realistic perspective and try to convince them that their real satisfaction is not going to come from, finally getting that job, or even just finally getting under the thumb of your parents. The real satisfaction is going to come from a heart connection with Krishna. And many are taking it seriously. I just got a message from this one girl who only came to our program like 2 times just before the end of the semester. And then, she had to leave. And she messaged, she said, "Oh, I've been sitting down and doing kirtan by myself." She's only done like twice. I sit there and just sing the mantra. They love to connect in this way. We just have to make more opportunities for them to connect as much as possible. Anyway, that's what I do. So Ratmaprabhu, if you have more advice, please tell me. There's certainly a challenging demographic. I can't imagine any demographic more challenging than modern college students. It's just so hard for them right now. So if you have some advice.
I don't have advice, but I have a way to compound the problem, if you allow me.
I like a challenge.
Yeah, more challenges. That even when students or anyone become devotees, and devotees themselves, they also struggle quite a bit. And seems like I was discussing this topic with Puru Prabhu, that one of the main problems seems to be that we are addicted to living in luxury, and that has a very high price tag. So would you know how to, because we say very freely, simple life, high thinking, but when we mean simple life, including hi-fi, Wi-Fi, and all a car and all the luxuries that funny, Taraka Prabhu says affluenza instead of influenza. Yes. The living in luxury, which may not seem very luxurious to most Americans, but it is a problem that we have a very high standard, and need to perhaps lower it in order to concentrate on what's important. What are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. Yes. Luxury? I don't know, luxury. I mean, if I were to ask, it's like if you're going to play the game at all, there's kind of a minimum. Nowadays, I mean, depending on where you live, unless you live in a very dense city with a lot of public transportation, you must have a car. If you're going to play the game at all, meaning having any job, occupation, if you're going to have children, I mean, there really is like some basics, and our basics in America certainly can be a lot higher than other countries of the world. But luxury, I think luxury is kind of a relative term. A lot of people are just struggling to have what is basic to be in the working world. Now, if we're not in the working world, if we are retired, or if we are fortunate to have full-time occupation, at an ISKCON center, for example, or a temple or farm, where your finances are more or less are not as important, not as pressing, then yes, I think there's certainly a necessity for simplicity. But if you're in the working world, there is a minimum, and what is luxury for one might not be for another. So it gets kind of relative. I do have an opinion about this, only because it came up recently in a very interesting discussion with Urmila Mataji, and she was giving a different perspective, that we do have this motto, as Tarika Prabhu said, we have many mottos. Actually, when I did look up what is the motto, he did say simple living, higher thinking more often as the motto. That's what Prabhupada said, simple living, higher thinking. And we have a tendency to try to kind of encourage people to simplify everything and to give up everything and instead be, engaged in devotional service in a temple. But is that always the appropriate thing? This is what Urmila Mataji was bringing up, that there are a lot of people who have the potential to be very successful, influential in career, in social circles, and in that way it could be very beneficial to Krishna also. But we still kind of have this, I don't know, this is sort of like a protocol to encourage people to not pursue even basics in life, and instead kind of create, which I don't want to be a little too controversial, but create a culture of dependency. And that's not necessarily best for everyone's Krishna consciousness either. Simplicity is certainly very good. Dependency, like financial dependency upon other devotees, is not always very good. It's not always very healthy for someone's spiritual life. For some who are renounced, who are brahmachari or brahmacharini, or those who are more vanaprastha, sannyasa, certainly. But otherwise, a dependency often brings all sorts of issues, social issues and personal issues. I mean, we've all seen it plenty of times. So Urmila Mataji kind of brought up this issue. Do we endorse that too much as protocol, that you should give up everything and just, be dependent financially on some ISKCON center? There's a lot of situations where maybe that's not the best move. So I'm compounding, you're compounding, Sarvatma Prabhu. I hope that's all right. Compounding upon compounding. This Kali Yuga is a complicated place. There's a lot of issues, and there isn't one surefire way, especially for those in Grihastha stage of life. There isn't one surefire way. Something has come up in the chat here. Based on scientific findings about job satisfaction you mentioned earlier, how can we as aspiring devotees transcend that same tendency so we can be satisfied doing any service, even when it might cause mental agony? Oof. Well, I mean, Krishna answers, the simple answer is Bhaktaram Yagitapasam. We have to see in connection to Krishna, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or whether you're working directly for Krishna at the farm, at the temple. We have to see the connection to Krishna. We have to feel the connection to Krishna. Sometimes maybe we need to say it explicitly. My dear Sri Shri Radha Damodar, I'm doing this for you. then Krishna says, then there's peace. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. We have to see that he's actually in control. I had a feeling when I was there, of course, as some of you know, milked the cows for a good 4 years. It's pretty tough commuting, sometimes like an hour commute in the winter in the snow at like 5 a.m. I'd pull up to that barn, in the morning at like 6 a.m., like negative 10 degrees, freezing cold, snow's piling up, pitch black. And I remember several times I pulled up there and just be thinking, what the hell am I doing? My God. There was some time when it was just me, unfortunately. Sometimes in the Gojra Magora would come, and I'd be struggling like anything. But Krishna blessed me with some deep understanding. And I hope that this is a useful insight. It might sound a little morbid, but it really helped me. That I'd be sitting there, really struggling to just like get out of the car and just start the service, which was hard. And it occurred to me that, anything that I can hope to accomplish in this world, anything that I could hope to achieve, everything that I would want, and all the people who I would want to recognize me for accomplishing it will all be gone and forgotten within 2 or 3 generations of my family. After my great grandkids, I'll just be completely forgotten in this body, right? You can all look at yourselves and think, do you know anything about your great grandparents or great great grandparents? Almost nothing. So basically, it only takes about 2 or 3 generations, 4 generations before you're just totally forgotten. Whatever you've accumulated, whatever things you got, something that you did, unless you've like done something really extraordinary, maybe it'll last, in some history book for a couple of years before it ultimately just becomes one little footnote, and then it's eventually forgotten. So we work so hard wanting to get some recognition, wanting to get some accumulation of stuff to be satisfied in this way, but all those things, they just turn to dust. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There is one thing that persists in this world. The fame and glory of Sri Sri Radha Damodar and their enterprises lives on for years and years, for decades and decades. And we have the opportunity to contribute to the expansion of Sri Sri Radha Damodar's enterprises that will last. We have the chance now to put our mark on something that will last in perpetuity. Did I say the word right? In perpetuity. Otherwise, whatever we do in this material world is just poof, it's gone. Maybe your own children will remember. Maybe your own children will forget, but your grandkids definitely won't care. Your great-grandkids won't even know about it. But if we do something, wow, which can, just put a little brick on this beautiful, castle or building for Sri Sri Radha Damodar, if we can just apply a little bit more to this palace of their pleasure, expand their enterprises a little more, expand their influence and their fame just a little bit more, then that's something that lasts. That's something that's really worth the effort. So that's the whole point that these social scientists are getting into, is that people don't feel a purpose in their work anymore. People don't feel like I'm doing something good, something that lasts, something that has a positive effect. But we as devotees can feel that. We can do that. Every time we do some little service for Krishna, however small it might be, it's just, we should think, I'm just increasing the domain of Sri Sri Radha Damodar's enterprise just a little bit more. I'm just maintaining the fame and glory of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada just a little bit more. I mean, that's something we can actually feel confident about and excited about. Whether it's in our job or in our direct service to Krishna, our job we should see as indirect service to Krishna. We should put that money back into Krishna as much as we can. Or if it's our direct service to Krishna, we should see it as an expansion of the glory of Krishna's enterprises. That's real purposeful. That's what Krishna is saying here. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatvam shantamiciti. I'm sure other devotees have something to say about that, so I'm going to let someone else comment. There's a hand raised from Jay. I assume that's, I don't know who Jay is. Jiva Pandit, Prabhu?
Hi. No, I'm a visitor
Oh, hi.
at Gita Nagari right now.
Hi.
And
Welcome.
yeah, this is an amazing class and very very relevant and great presentation. So please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I hope that this is appropriate. So
There are
you're
no there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. So you ask anything.
you haven't heard my questions yet. Um, so you mentioned that in ISKCON, and I'm very, very new. So, I don't really know all the principles by any means or the culture or anything like that. Very, very new. But you mentioned that it's encouraged that, we should give up everything and, read Bhagavatam, give up everything and read Bhagavad Gita so we can really get in touch with our soul and, detach from the material world, which, looks different for everybody. For some people, it's renouncing family completely. For some people, it's, maybe just calling them once a week, and for some people, it's leaving a job. Other people, it's working and also doing service at the same time, right? It's different. For everyone. And on one hand, I agree with that so much because now that I'm here personally and I have some time off work and just more time to study and focus on my spirituality, I feel much more healthy and more purposeful and, more like doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a human being. But at the same time, this simple living, high thinking is only enabled by the incredible hard work of the 15 or 16 people here, in addition to the more people that donate and more volunteers that come. So that simple living, high thinking for me right now in this like week or two, where it's just like, okay, wake up, do your service, wake up, I'm not even really doing service right now, wake up, study, chant. um, that's only enabled by people that may not necessarily be living so simply, still have high thinking, but not necessarily just like waking up and chanting every day. Everyone is doing a lot of work around here. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, how do you know um, whether you're supposed to be that person that, like you said, maybe could be big in social circles, and that could also be really amazing for Krishna, or if you're supposed to be that person that's just supposed to withdraw and study instead of like earning for Krishna, or instead of trying to you know be someone you know big, like expand Krishna's enterprise in that way, rather than just kind of like looking within and studying and doing all of that. Does that question make any sense?
Yes, it does make sense. It's a great question. Thank you for opening up and asking. It's a common concern, especially for a lot of us who are, get new to Krishna consciousness, to bhakti, and it's all very exciting. And we want to know, like, what does the future look like for me? So it's a very common question, and it's very normal to have that concern and that perspective. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking. There isn't one particularly easy answer, because we're all different. We don't all have just like one method. But a lot of times these sort of things can be understood best, with the guidance and help of a guru, the spiritual master. And I don't want to put too much pressure on you because I don't know you or how new you are. A guru is a pretty big deal, and you can consider it, whether you're ready to have that sort of relationship with someone who can really help you to see what's going to be best for you and your growth in bhakti. The guru advises some that better you live a renounced life. You have the capability that'll be good for you. The guru advised others, you cannot do a renounced life. It'd be better if you have what minimum you need to be peaceful so that you can also focus on your bhakti, on your growth in Krishna consciousness. So a lot of times it's hard for us to see it ourselves because we have a biased perspective. We're bewildered by our own desires and expectations and ego, but there are many experienced and devoted persons like a spiritual master and like other devotees who can help you to determine what's really going to be best for you in the future. But while we're new, it's okay to take a little time to just like be in the ashram there, to try staying at Gitanagari, you know. But certainly continue with your schooling and your university or whatever you're doing at the same time if you can. So I don't have like a straightforward answer for you. Of course, I don't even know you so well, but I hope to know you soon. But my best answer would be that we understand these things in time, and especially with guidance from a guru and from other experienced devotees. They'll help us to see what we can't see so clearly ourselves. And that is what's going to be best for our growth in Krishna consciousness. I hope that answer is enough. If anyone else wants to contribute to that, of course, I'd love for all the much more experienced Prabhus in the room to say something. However, the darshan of Sri Sri Radha Damodar has begun. And so I think now is the cue for me to stop talking so that we can see the Lord and enjoy the kirtan. Unless anyone's burning with some final comment. I saw Tarika Prabhu was unmuted, but maybe he's now focused on Sri Sri Radha Damodar as he should. All right. So thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Damodar ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.